You either die a hero, or you live long enough to bend the knee to DEI. The corporate promotional launch window for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is now well and truly mired in controversy, drama, histrionics and social media meltdowns, with the game literally about to launch in a matter of hours. The early access reviewers have now had a copy for nearly a month thanks to privileged, NDA-enshrined protected promotional characteristics. Wild claims about the game being banned in Saudi Arabia kicked off, triggering an almighty online debacle about whether this is true, what Warhorse has to say about it, and whether or not this constitutes Warhorse Studios bending the knee to diversity, equity and inclusion, and effectively, for want of a better phrase, getting woke. All hell broke loose on social media, with YouTubers operating a running commentary on the whole shitstorm. The public relations Stasi and community managers are running a damage control operation with fairly stunted success, and Daniel Vavra has been doing what Daniel Vavra does best. After making video games, that is. He has been going on X and telling people to go fuck themselves. And also saying some semi-coherent stuff about people calling him a Nazi, and complaining that he's a Jew. I don't mean to imply that he is complaining about being a Jew. I think his point was that one minute he was being called a Nazi and then the next minute he was being insulted because he was of Jewish heritage. As the drug mule said to the drug dealer whilst he pulled down his trousers and bent over the counter, there is a lot to unpack here. Before we slap our faces into the intestines and viscera of this particular bloodbath, I need to qualify my position regarding this game so we can address my own internal biases, as the cultural Marxists or Warhorse Studios community managers would say. When it comes to Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, I am an absolute unapologetic fanboy. I consider it to be one of the finest video games ever made. It is one of my personal favourite games, I have sunk an unhealthy amount of hours into playing it, and I absolutely loved its uncompromising no fucks given attitude and general lack of hand-holding. Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 is a legend, both objectively and subjectively, and on many occasions I fired up that game just to enjoy the glorious open world, go hunting and generally trek through the countryside with no specific agenda, goal or purpose. KCD 1 is as much of an experience as it is an activity. Daniel Vavra also happens to be a personal hero of mine. In fact, he might be my last hero in the video game industry, mainly because all my other video game heroes either sold out, shilled out, went woke, turned out to be fucking scam artists, or some combination of the above. I was so impressed and grateful for the excellent KCD1 that I actually sent Daniel Vavra a bottle of whiskey as a personal thanks. I factually want Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 to be my game of the year for 2025, and I have been waiting expectantly for years for Warhorse to release another game. I have pre-ordered the gold edition and I didn't even bother to check to see what gonks, widgets or horse ornaments came with it. I am possibly one of the most biased people on the internet to be discussing this situation, but frankly, even I smell a fucking rat. And whatever ends up transpiring after launch, however good the game is, however skippable the man-loving scenes may be, and whatever we end up finding out in retrospect, I personally think Warhorse has already been a bit fucking cheeky, and we can see that from the facts that are already in the public domain. And yeah, I get it. I want Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 to be awesome and a huge success for Daniel Vavra and Warhorse Studios too. The superfan in me wants this to be a win. But if someone pisses down my back, I am not going to pretend it's raining simply out of a sense of deluded optimism. And I say this in the nicest possible way imaginable. Personally, I happen to think that Warhorse Studios and Daniel Vavra have been pissing down our backs, and I'm also a little surprised at how much of the fanbase is completely letting them off the hook over this. They're just lifting their heads up at the fake rain with beaming smiles and letting Warhorse tinkle all over their little smiling faces. Because whatever you think about Henry's sudden inexplicable urge to get some dick, the way Warhorse Studios has behaved is fairly shameless. Many people, like myself, in part, loved Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 because it made zero concessions to the modern audience. It barely made concessions to modern day quality of life functionality. And then it released the DLC which made the game even harder. Warhorse Studios dined out on their newfound reputation as a studio that did not bend the knee and basked in the glory of anti-woke adoration. And this will be important later. Personally, I am pretty fucking tired of woke bullshit in video games, and that is another bias right there. I will no doubt be accused of being all kinds of things, but my policy on diversity in video games can be easily summed up in a few statements. I believe in equality, not equity. I have no issue with games doing whatever they want with their characters. I do have issues with developers transforming existing franchises to pander to modern day cultural Marxism. This is because people are financially incentivised to do this, so that video game entertainment becomes a means to social engineer political views and norms in young people. Don't believe me? Well, I did a full breakdown of this in another video. I didn't have a problem with gay and bisexual characters in Fallout New Vegas, although looking back now I can see that it was a thin end of the wedge. However, I do have a problem with turning canonically straight characters gay because of DEI. Put simply, my position on diversity is this: I don't mind having gay characters in video games. I just don't think it's reasonable to have gay characters in all my video games. It's a personal preference. I'm still allowed those, right? People are into different things, many of which are not my bag. Dressing up in rubber, furry costumes, orgies, bisexuality, sploshing. It's all fine. There is nothing wrong with your sexual preferences, with the possible exception of sploshing, which is utterly deviant. What manner of degenerate would waste a perfectly good blancmange? But imagine if there was some directive which made it compulsory to have these things in all video games, regardless of your personal preferences. Well, these days there are these kinds of directives, and that is why I have an issue with DEI being in everything. For the purposes of simplicity and laziness, I will refer to the company that bought Warhorse Studios simply as the Embracer Group. Yes, it is more complicated than that. It always is. Koch Media initially bought Warhorse, although apparently this was reported as THQ Nordic at the time. Koch Media changed its name to PlayOn, which is a really shit pun in my humble opinion. PlayOn also apparently seem to be in charge of Warhorse Studios' PR operations now, FYI. This could potentially all get very confusing and annoying very quickly, and require me to do actual research, which is never going to happen. So I will simply proclaim this. I am going to refer to the job lot of them as the Embracer Group, because names, subsidiary status, ownership and command structures may change over time, but ultimately the whole lot of them are owned subsidiaries of Embracer Group. Sorry, but these guys restructure ownership, rename their divisions and swap shit about on flowcharts at such a frenetic pace, even their own curated Wikipedia page conflicts with historic news reports. So it's Embracer Group. Deal with it. So with all that dealt with, I guess we should start the autopsy. So what do we currently factually know at this point? Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 was released on the 13th of February 2018 and was a based, non-woke, cult hit that has shifted over 8 million copies to date. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, the sequel to, the first game, feel free to take notes, is currently in the top 20 pre-order list on Steam. Warhorse Studios themselves referenced Christianity in their own PR and stated factually that Henry is a straight white Christian. They said that. Warhorse Studios was independent at the time, so a lot of shield YouTubers took a big shit on this game when they reviewed it because there was no promotional budget for them to pilfer. Daniel Vavra used to run and be a major shareholder in Warhorse Studios. Warhorse Studios was very much an independent studio. Daniel Vavra was an absolute Chad, and this was proven. Science fact. Embracer Group bought Warhorse on the 13th of February 2019 for about €37 million, cash. And unless I'm grossly mistaken, that means Embracer Group bought the company on the precise 1-year anniversary of the launch of Kingdom Come Deliverance 1. This means Warhorse Studios is now a subsidiary of Embracer Group, along with the other companies that Embracer has snaffled up in Borg-like fashion. This also means that whatever Daniel Vavra says about having full creative control, he answers to corporate overlords so far above him in the Embracer Group that if the head boss man of Embracer called him up to his office, Vavra would have such a long elevator ride up to the top floor that his ears would pop several times on the way. Embracer Group, for the record, factually have their heads so far up the arse of DEI they have not seen their own feet in a decade. The Warhorse community managers, as lovely as they are not shy of a bit of wokeness themselves. And we frankly don't know if they answer to Daniel Vavra or directly to Playon at this point. Then someone leaked a story about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 being banned in Saudi Arabia because of an unskippable, vaguely explicit gay sex scene. The community managers said, "Trust us, bro." Daniel Vavra made a statement spelling out that everything in the game is his own creative choice and he stands by everything, which is a long way of saying, "Trust us, bro." The community managers suddenly rolled out draconic anti-free speech rules on the Steam forums. Rules that pretty much mirror all current day bullshit. You know the drill, no politics, unless it's pro-DEI politics. So basically, our politics, not your politics, and if you question the narrative, you will be banned. Everyone involved dodged the question and failed to give a straight answer. Pun intended. And then, eventually Daniel Vavra coyly admits that Henry does now have a gay romance option. And a gay sex scene. But it is optional. And it's not unskippable. Then people started posting screen grabs of the Sony PlayStation store in Saudi Arabia showing that Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 has been delisted and is no longer for sale. Now, I once saw a Photoshop picture of a giant gorilla with the head of a duck-billed platypus, so these days at least I avoid rushing to judgment just because someone posted a low-resolution image of some text on Reddit. Even I can do that shit in Windows Paint. However, in response to any comments about whether KCD2 is banned in Saudi Arabia, genuinely withdrawn by Sony, restricted by censors, or merely abducted by aliens, I will simply say this. Saudi Arabia absolutely does not tolerate anything to do with representations of LGBTQ lifestyles or its promotion. Saudi Arabia has no criminal code and instead relies on a Wahhabist interpretation of Sharia to police society. One aspect of this is that anything seen to condone or promote homosexuality is strictly against the law, and they had previously banned things as benign as Marvel movies for this precise reason. So optional or not, skippable or not, if there is a gay romance in KCD2, it will be fucking banned in Saudi Arabia for a fact. So this social media post was either an elaborate bluff, a guess, or genuine, but regardless, all pro-LGBTQ stuff is banned there, and so will Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, unless Warhorse censors it in the region themselves. So whilst the nuance of the accusations might be slightly inaccurate, the substance was seemingly absolutely on the money. Ergo, all along, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 was going to get banned in Saudi Arabia because man sex. Many YouTubers, particularly anti-woke YouTubers, are now defending Warhorse's decision to have gay romance, primarily on the grounds that the gay sex is optional. The early access reviewers have been playing the game now for weeks, and strangely, none of them noticed that Henry is now gay. Optionally. And let that thought fester, and mull over the significance of this, because the implications are frankly chilling. All the early access reviewers were given full versions of this game, and they are conspicuously silent about the butt sex in it, and totally silent about the current controversy. The early access reviewers have had this game for nearly a month, and none of them was shouting from the rooftops, "Holy fuck, they turned Henry gay, that's gonna piss a lot of people off." But more of this later. Now these are the facts, but I need to comment and speculate on one thing. Embracer Group bought Warhorse exactly 1 year to the day after KCD1's release. That is both odd and significant in ways I don't understand. Maybe the final valuation was based on year 1 sales, but that would mean the final valuation was spammed on a calculator in under 24 hours. Maybe someone else understands this striking coincidence, but all I will say is this. According to a 3-minute search I did on the internet, acquisitions take 6 months to a year to finalise normally. When they are cross-border, this process can extend up to 3 years. Kingdom Come Deliverance was released, and precisely 365 days later, on the nose, contracts were signed and exchanged, and the studio changed hands. Something relevant is there, even if I can't figure it out. I would, however, presume that the acquisition talks were already well underway long before Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 was released. So what is my take on all of this? Well, first off, let's make sure we can see the wood from the trees. This all started because of allegations that Saudi Arabia banned the game for an unskippable gay cutscene. Warhorse refused to address the issue directly and asked us to trust them. Now it turns out there is a gay cutscene, and it's certainly looking like the game won't be on sale in, you guessed it, Saudi Arabia. So right off the bat, I am starting to have trust issues. The second big takeaway is this. People need to learn to use search engines. Google Warhorse Studios. Check who owns them, because everyone is still talking about Warhorse Studios like it's their favourite little indie darling, when it's actually owned by the same woke mega corporation that pumped out this turd. Yeah, Saints Row. That abomination. For anyone who didn't get the memo, now Warhorse is bought out. They are an independent studio in the same way that Walmart is your local friendly corner shop. Daniel Favre used to be the king of the castle in his own independent province. But now he has kissed the ring, and Warhorse are a tiny vassal state within the mighty/degenerate kingdom of Embracer Group. For want of a less hyperbolic example, Daniel Favre used to be this guy. But now he has decided to have his empire entirely subsumed by Embracer Group. He is kinda this guy. There is no shame in it. That guy got to live, and he got a fancy new outfit. I am not judging Favre for selling his company. God knows he's worked hard enough for it. If I had a company and someone offered me 38 million for it, I'd probably sell it too. I'd buy a private island in the tropics where I could play video games all day long and never go outside. But what I wouldn't do is stay at the company and tell everyone that I was still in complete control, even though I answered to some other higher up managers who themselves are about 17 tiers of management below head office. This acquisition changes the power dynamic entirely, and whilst many people miss this point, some of us called it. Daniel Favre kisses the ring of a corporation that itself worships at the satanic altar of DEI, and this was always likely to impact Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 in some way. So Daniel Vavra may well stand by all his creative decisions, and he may well be speaking truth when he says this was all his decisions and nobody influenced him. But to this, I would raise a few pertinent counterpoints. 1. Vavra has now been working for his new corporate overlords for 6 whole years. People can be shaped, influenced, and ground down over that kind of time period. It doesn't even necessarily have to involve selling out consciously. 6 years in a corporate environment is plenty for someone to change perspective, transform their worldview, and get sucked into a different headspace. Secondly, anyone can claim that they have full creative control whilst they're never doing anything that pisses off their bosses. It's easy to delude yourself. Vavra claims that he's got a completely free hand, but I call bullshit on that. If Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 had a plot where Henry signed up to join some crazy ethno-fascist Teutonic Knights of some order of the First Reich, and he went around killing people that looked a bit foreign, how much creative freedom do you think he would really have then? I think Vavra would get a sudden shock about how little creative freedom he really has. Pretty sure, in fact, that security would have wrestled him to the ground at the order of head office long before the executives for Embracer Group arrived to fire him in person. When this story about the Saudi ban first broke, I tried not to read too much into it. Saudi Arabia is a batshit crazy country, and getting on the wrong side of them is not very hard. One journalist pissed off their new supreme leader, and their response was to wait until the next time he went to a Saudi embassy, take him into a side room, murder him, chop him up into bits, then smuggle him out of the building in diplomatic bags and dispose of the body. Now, this is what they do at their embassies in other countries, so fuck knows what they're capable of at home. It is, however, very ironic because Saudi Arabia is a massive contributor to the World Economic Forum, so by default it's a huge fan of promoting DEI abroad. However, just like China, who similarly is a big player in the World Economic Forum and spends trillions on promoting DEI in the West, neither country will stand for that shit in their own backyard. DEI and all that nonsense is not tolerated domestically. So yes, that is the bizarre twist in all of this. DEI in the West is funded and promoted by, amongst other countries, Saudi Arabia. The gayness in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is there directly or indirectly because of DEI imperatives. But when released, Saudi Arabia bans the game for the gayness that it helped indirectly to fund. How funny is that? If you don't think DEI is a psyop, why are the people funding it abroad banning it at home? We also have to consider that whatever Warhorse say about Henry's sudden conversion to the way of the weenus, there are very real and very seductive reasons for them to take a knee whilst DEI unzips its trousers. And I mean this genuinely and sympathetically, because it's a plight faced by all creative industries in the West. These days, it's practically impossible to qualify for any kind of award, prize, arts funding or tax breaks in most countries in the West, unless you make at least token concessions to DEI, Bridge, or whatever the fuck BlackRock is calling forcing changes in behaviour these days. Look, Hogwarts Legacy, by all and any metrics, was the most successful game of 2023. Sales, profit, player engagement, customer satisfaction. That game was winner winner chicken fucking dinner. And just because Antifa and the trans terrorists hate JK Rowling because she thinks it's wrong that men go into changing rooms and slap their cocks across the foreheads of 12-year-old girls, they didn't even get invited to the Game Awards, let alone win anything. They were shut out and stitched up. So yes, I get it. If you want your video game to even be in the running for an award, you had better get some gay rumpy pumpy in your video game, along with some black representation, whining about the racisms, and preferably at least one noble or kind token transgender character to serve as positive representation. Even Hogwarts Legacy did that. So when Daniel Vavra says he stands by all his creative decisions, he might be telling the truth, albeit in a conceited, highly dishonest, or self-delusional way. And that right there is me trying to be sympathetic. Whatever the PR and community Gestapo are saying this week, Kingdom Come Deliverance is a Christian-themed game, and Henry is canonically a heterosexual Christian. We know this because 1. Warhorse representatives told us exactly that back during the Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 days. And 2. It's in the fucking Bible. Although I possibly worded that badly. FYI, the Bible is that slightly grubby and warm book that you have to put your hand on when you're in court. Kingdom Come Deliverance is in fact a Christian reference. To be precise, it's a name derived from paraphrasing the Lord's Prayer. And I'm talking about the original traditional one, not the modernised text message friendly version designed for modern semi-literate Instagram users, which actually made me sick up a bit in my mouth when I discovered that it really existed. Yes, there is a Lord's Prayer that has been updated for a modern audience. I fucking despair. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. And DEI. Get it? Kingdom Come Deliverance. And despite what the Warhorse community managers are blabbing about right now, this wasn't meant to be the squeal like a pig kind of deliverance. So yes, factually and evidentially, Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 was a Christian themed game. Henry was a Christian, and Henry was straight. The community managers said that, the game said that, and the Bible said it. Although the community managers and PR department are saying something completely different now. Daniel Vavra's and the community managers' refutations of the Saudi Arabia claim were incredibly dishonest and frankly demonstrated a piss poor attitude to their loyal fans. In fact, it was beyond lying by omission, it was gaslighting by omission. Is the game banned in Saudi Arabia because of unskippable sex scenes? It's a simple enough question, really. An honest answer potentially would have been, yeah, pretty much, but the gay man love is at least skippable. They were asked a simple question. The facts came out slightly different, but essentially the same. There is gay sex. There is a gay sex scene. Henry is now gay. Optionally, it certainly seems that they won't be selling it in Saudi Arabia because of the gay sex. And maybe as a footnote, they should have said something like, you can skip it though. That bit was wrong. Instead of telling us something like this, we got a wall of deflection, bullshit and draconian censorship on the Steam forums. I reckon that qualifies as dishonesty, deception and gaslighting. In fact, it is basically the same sort of shit that you would expect to see from any other woke game studios trying to gaslight the fans. Now I appreciate they were running scared about potential backlash and wanted to get ahead of it, but ain't that the way of the world? People always have a good justification for doing bad things, otherwise they wouldn't do it. They essentially threaten the fanbase with Steam forum bans for wrongthink, which is an unquestionably scummy way to react. Think about that. The PR team fucked this whole situation by not being immediately and completely honest about the situation, and their immediate primary response was to 1. Bullshit about the issue and dodge the question, and 2. Threaten their fans with permanent bans from the community forums for speaking up about it. They say that the best defence is offence. Well, they went on the attack rather than be honest. I don't think it's controversial to come to the conclusion that the community managers don't have the best interests of the players at heart. They are representing the sales department and seemingly don't give a shit about the community or their ability to discuss openly and honestly. But when it comes to Warhorse being evasive and dishonest, let's put this in another context to see what they really did here. Imagine if someone is accused by the cops of murdering a 90-year-old granny, and their response is, well, it wasn't actually murder because I killed her completely by accident. I was only strangling her to try and frighten her. FYI, she never had kids, so she wasn't really a granny. And besides, I told her if she just showed me where she hid the jewellery, I'd leave her alone. So technically, her strangling was optional. Trust me, bro. Well, that is pretty much what Warhorse Studios did, really, isn't it? They got busted in 4K and came out swinging with boxing gloves wrapped in technicalities. Whether the initial accusations on social media were real or fabricated, it makes no difference because, regardless, they certainly all seem to essentially be right. So we either have a legitimate insider leaking slightly inaccurate facts, or a time traveller. Warhorse were asked if their game was banned in Saudi Arabia because of an unskippable gay sex scene, and the reality certainly appears like their game won't be on sale in Saudi Arabia because of a skippable gay sex scene. For a bunch of people who are allegedly grown-ups, their evasive response is juvenile, petty and immature. The accusations are substantively true, yet they're still basically denying it, in a way, and playing the victim card. Feigning outrage and offence, which itself is a rather, dare I say it, woke way to handle it. Hear that silence? That is me waiting for them to apologise to the community. Especially since the way they clamped down on the Steam forums basically implied that they thought their fans were a bunch of potential bigoted homophobes. I mean, you don't put up a no smoking sign unless you think there are smokers in the vicinity, right? They also have large swathes of the content creator community in a bit of a tight spot. Just looking at the army of shills that got early access for this game highlighted 2 points. Firstly, this is a professional corporate PR operation now. Secondly, this is not about reviewers who really care about the game, nor give an honest opinion. There are a few outliers in the groups that I've seen, but half of these guys probably didn't even play the first game, and those that did only suddenly started playing recently. What a surprise. No doubt when the promotion company contacted them and started sorting out promotional contracts. There are literally early access reviewers effusing praise over Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 who dunked on the first game. In fact, I watched with a grin as some of these negative reviewers suddenly reversed their opinions a few years back, literally when rumours broke about Embracer Group acquiring Warhorse. It's like these bloodhounds could literally smell the PR budget. I also take extreme issue with the way that optional is being touted as a legitimate excuse for how they retconned Henry's sexuality. It's no big deal because it's optional. Like somehow retconning a canonically heterosexual Christian character is just fine as long as it's optional gay sex. Like all meaning and significance miraculously evaporates because it's optional. I do not think this makes logical sense. Granting something optional status does not remove its meaning. What if BMW started offering optional Waffen SS paint jobs on its new cars? It doesn't mean anything, it's just optional. How about a Black Panther spin-off game where all the men have optional gay sex with each other? It's optional, so surely nobody would get upset about that. How about in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Henry has the option to go into the monastery and bugger the choir boys. It's not pedo, because it's optional. Strange that you don't see video games allowing straight male characters to have optional heterosexual sex with canonically lesbian characters. Just imagine the uproar. Essentially, LGBTQ is inviolate. But heterosexual characters need to get used to the idea of being optionally gay. Sorry, but the entire argument that it's all okay because it's optional is a pure crock of shit. Optional is not a magical word which instantly wins the debate, even if this seems to be the primary way that Warhorse is desperately trying to frame the entire narrative. If a video game decides to have straight and gay options for its characters, that's none of my business and none of my concern. But if you take a canonically straight Christian man and suddenly make him bisexual, don't claim that this has no meaning or significance just because it's optional. Making something optional does not diminish its impact, significance or implications. The mass cope at this point is frankly sad and quite funny. I may have been a little bit naughty and dropped a few polite shit posts on some YouTube videos anonymously, and immediately I got responses from fanboys bleating, "It's fine, it's optional, you dumbass." And on one occasion it appears that someone started deleting a couple of my posts, but who knows, maybe that was just YouTube's algorithm doing its thing. People can't let go of their emotional perspective of their indie darling studio, even though Warhorse is now a corporate operation. Watching people react to Henry becoming gay is like observing the stages of grief, and make no mistake, we are currently in the denial phase. People need to stop making excuses for Warhorse, like, the PR company actually said that, it's not Warhorse's fault. People need to stop running defence for Warhorse and buying into their optional propaganda narrative. People need to stop defending Warhorse like it's 2018 basically. Corporations are not people. Staff come and go, leadership changes, leadership structures change, and even the people at those companies change. Naughty Dog could do no wrong during the era of The Last of Us. By The Last of Us 2, they were the villains of the video game industry. I mean, look at Bethesda. I can still remember a time when Todd Howard was cool. Nobody owes Warhorse any loyalty, unless you cut a deal with them for an early access copy of the game and signed an NDA. But yes, keep that in mind. Whilst watching people react to this whole shit show, think about the stages of grief and start spotting the denial and multi-layered slatherings of profound cope. I have no problem with gay characters in video games. I don't want them all to be gay, but fair and equal representation is fair and equal, right? I do, however, have an issue with Warhorse taking a straight character and retconning him to be gay. They would not ungay a character, so why is gaying a character okay? Why pamper to the desires of the LGBTQ players that might have desires to see Henry become gay? That's pretty creepy, right? Making a straight character do gay stuff because it appeals to the sexual predilections of a certain section of your audience? A weird section? That is the stuff of slash fiction and not mature entertainment. Imagine if the next Star Trek game made James T. Kirk gay. Would that mean nothing because it's optional? What about making an Escape from New York game where Snake Plissken is bisexual? Snoop Dogg had an appearance in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 2022. What about if they made his operator gay? How about trans? Do you reckon Snoop Dogg would be happy when he found that out? So let's call bullshit on this "it doesn't mean anything because it's optional" gaslighting. These decisions have meaning. Of course they do. And if these kinds of decisions did not have meaning, then it would be just fine and peachy to remove gay and LGBTQ themes from video games, right? Because it's all optional, right? Wrong. It has been made very clear a number of times that modding or changing video games to remove LGBTQ content is tantamount to a hate crime, so they can fuck off with their optional LGBTQ agenda because it's not really optional, is it? We seem to have no choice about it being inserted into every video game, but when anyone tries to mod it out, they suddenly realise it is not optional and they get life bans from people like Nexus Mods and the Steam community forums. Now I know that simply by calling out this bullshit hypocrisy I will no doubt be accused of being homophobic, but I am not. Far from it. Lesbians are nice. I'm a staunch believer in equality, equal rights and personal choice. Incidentally, I'm also a firm believer in free speech and open and honest dialogue, which the Warhorse community managers clearly are not. They want to make Henry bisexual and then ban you if you object. But I am staunchly not homophobic, and I firmly believe that everyone has the right to be the best version of themselves, whatever that might be, with the exception of pedos and possibly 67% of the furry community. There is nothing wrong with being gay, and nothing I am saying implies that, nor implies that I think that privately. Fuck, if I was gay, I wouldn't be ashamed about it at all. I would be spectacularly super gay. I would be king of the gays. I'd learn to dance properly, without grumbling. I'd memorise all the words to sing along a sound of music. I'd wear those cowboy trousers. Arseless chaps, or chaps, because apparently all chaps are arseless. People get very angry when I get that wrong. I'd be on Grindr every 20 minutes, dashing down to the local toilets to establish rapport and healthy relations with fellow members of my community through those strange holes you find in the cubicle wall. I would hang out at that German nightclub where they have those chemsex orgies. You know the one, the nightclub in Munich where half of all cases of the new strain of monkeypox were traced back to. I would skip down the street dressed as one of the village people while singing Diana Ross's I'm Coming Out at the top of my lungs. Chicago Pride would call me up and say, for fuck's sake Kilo, give us some of the gayness back. We've run out of gayness because you've used it all. I would put glitter in my washing machine so every laundry day would be a rainbow glitter day. I would be so gay that even the other gays would tell me to dial it down a notch. I would be the proud gay Führer who would usher in the era of the first gay Reich. I still wouldn't watch Brokeback Mountain though. Don't think anyone is that gay. And I also wouldn't get myself a job in the video game industry and start making canonically heterosexual male Christian characters have sex with dudes, because that right there isn't gay, it's just plain fucking creepy. These choices have meaning, and we know they have meaning because Warhorse stoically didn't mention it. Warhorse very carefully concealed it. When it was exposed, they dodged the issue. When confronted, they were evasive about it. When people started asking questions, they tried to shut down discussion on the forums. And then Daniel Vavra started attacking YouTubers who were discussing it. And at this point, I am certain that Warhorse Studios knows damn well that this was always going to be an issue at some point. One saddening observation about all of this drama is that it was clearly avoidable. All they had to do was immediately respond by saying, yes, there is a gay scene with Henry, but it's skippable. And we were scared to mention it because we were worried that people would lose their shit. And maybe throw in a quick, sorry, but we had to at least bend the knee a bit because our investors wanted us to qualify for the Game Awards. It would have been pathetic, but at least they would have preserved some of their integrity even if they did end up looking weak. Or maybe they should have just been open and honest about it all along and mentioned it themselves earlier. Maybe something along the lines of, some dudes from BlackRock forced us to make Henry suck some dick. Sorry about that. Actually, I take it all back. Sure, Warhorse made the situation worse with their retarded reaction, but the die was cast the second they started pampering to the modern audience. By the way, it's okay, we can use the word retarded now. Trump's the president. The bottom line is, they clearly knew this was going to be a fiasco, and they were just trying to keep a lid on it long enough to roll the burning truck over the finish line on launch day. So how can they pretend this situation is no big deal because it's optional, when clearly they have maintained and coordinated a concerted effort to keep it secret, because they know it is a big deal, even if it's only optional. Now I think about it, this is all about keeping this secret until the review cycle is over. I heard that all the early access reviewers were allowed to show whatever they wanted, but they were banned explicitly from showing any footage after a certain unspecified point, approximately 10 hours in. From what I've seen, the access reviewers were strangely vague about this specific point. Some say about 10 hours in, another person said about 8 hours in. Well, they're not sitting there with fucking egg timers. They were clearly told a specific point in the game beyond which they can neither discuss nor show footage. I would bet a kidney that the gay love scene is after this embargo point. So yes, I would postulate that this scene is about manipulating the review cycle. They wanted all the access reviews out, they wanted to be basking in positive PR, they wanted the game to launch, and they didn't want any discussion about Henry being hit with the rainbow tranquilizer gun until all the pre-orders had gone through and people had been playing long enough to void their refund windows. The more I think this one through, the more cynical it starts to look. Maybe I'm wrong. In fact, I hope I'm wrong about this, because if I'm correct, this is some pretty manipulative and dark stuff. It is also not looking particularly healthy for the early access reviewers, because they are now all possibly complicit in this potential cover-up, and very likely will be defending the optional homosexuality from launch day, because if they don't, they will have to admit that they kept quiet about it for personal profit. As a footnote to this, I went back and watched some more of the access reviews of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and I kept seeing the same trope being used. We can only talk about the game up to a certain vague point, about 10 hours in, but they have the full version of the game, and they've had it for about a month now, and you can bet your arse, and Henry's, plenty of them know, and at the very least suspect, that there is a gay romance and gay love scene. But for some strange reason, not one single access reviewer bothered to mention it. If you heard one of them mention it, let me know, but I can find no evidence that any single one of them has mentioned the gay romance. Funny that. Literally hundreds of early access reviewers playing this game to death for a month and not one single squeak about the gay sex scene. I certainly didn't hear anything about it. Certainly when the story broke about the Saudi ban, nobody said, "Oh, that access reviewer was talking about that earlier." In fact, why didn't we hear about the gay love scene and the romance options from the access reviewers long before the Saudi Arabia censorship story broke? So hundreds of access reviewers grinding this game to death, not one person mentioned the gay romance, and strangely, all of them staying very quiet about this drama. That's a very strange set of coincidences. In fact, you could be forgiven for thinking that this all looks rather, well, coordinated. I think if Daniel Vavra genuinely wants to clear up this misunderstanding, then possibly he should publish the non-disclosure agreements and the specific instructions that were given to all these lovely, trustworthy, entirely objective and completely impartial early access reviewers. Because I smell a fucking rat. I think the NDA probably specifies either directly or indirectly that they can't discuss the gay romance. Paranoid? Certainly. But about this, let's call it a hunch. I think the whole lot of them know about it and they're squirming in their seats right now. I think full disclosure of the NDA details would probably show that Warhorse preempted this drama and prepared for it. And I also think that these access reviewers need to explain what the exact fuck is going on. I wouldn't be surprised if some of them retrospectively say things like, "Oh, was there a gay sex scene? I must have missed that out. I picked the other option probably," and then do their best pouting Honestly not bullshitting face. Show us the non-disclosure agreements, the real NDAs, not a generic one, not a different one, and then we can at least start to piece together whether their requests to trust us bro were legitimate, or an emotional appeal to ignore clearly dishonest and deceptive conduct. I think there's a profound lesson here about PR and manipulation. The first game was propelled to online fame and infamy because of a convergence of events. The game KCD1 was superb. It was uncompromising, historically accurate and hardcore. It was unapologetically unwoke. Daniel Vavra was not even shy about going on social media and telling the wokies to go and screw themselves. The game and the celebrity surrounding it quickly became a lightning rod for the video game anti-woke movement, and Kingdom Come Deliverance were quick to capitalise on this. They embraced it, leaned into it, their PR promoted it, and they dined out on it. Looking back now, maybe this was not quite as genuine as it all appeared at the time. Strangely, only today I noticed something about Kingdom Come Deliverance that probably made me even more cynical and jaded than I already am. No, really, it's possible for me to be more cynical and jaded, and I work on it constantly. Now, I really wanted to give Daniel Vavra and Warhorse Studios the benefit of the doubt, but once trust is broken, you can't help but work your way backwards to double check other things for signs of deceit. And when I point something out to you, I don't think you'll give them the benefit of the doubt either. I will postulate that they knew damn well they were being dishonest and engineered a deliberate policy of concealing the gay sex. And this is what changed my mind. Completely by accident, I stumbled across a Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 motion capture YouTube video by Platigil Image, who it appears are the or one of the companies that did the motion capture for KCD2. I strongly suggest you watch all of this video and videos like it. It's great fun. It's got fighting, it's got Henry dancing with girls, it's got Henry cuddling with girls, it's got Henry fighting with men, it's got more girls, it's got more girls with Henry, and a girl on a horse. At 22 seconds in, there's even an edit where Henry transitions from kissing a girl to Henry sneering and pushing away a man. The subtext here is overt and fairly clear. Now, this whole video would have been checked and approved by Playon and Warhorse's PR Gestapo. This video would not be released unless it was 100% on message, signed off by legal and approved by the PR department. And that message is: Henry fights men and kisses girls. They are trying very hard to project the image of Henry as a man's man and a ladies' man, and at no point did they show any mocap footage of Henry cottaging in the shithouse at the local inn. There were no shots of motion captured horseback mounting. There's no mocap of Henry cuddling his new special friend. There's no mocap gay sex scene in any of the promotional videos, and once you specifically start looking back at all their promotion, it certainly seems that they have tried very hard to project Henry as the heterosexual bawdy hero. They shamelessly sold this game as boobs and swords. They absolutely hid any fucking hint of the gay romance. And once you start looking again, it's blindingly obvious this was policy and a cover-up. It's worth noting that there are several things going on here. It's one thing to acknowledge that they clearly engineered a deliberate and dishonest cover-up about the gay romance. That's one issue. But what I personally think is worse is that now the cat is out of the bag, they're still lying about it and gaslighting about the whole thing. Now add to this that the early access reviewers are under NDA until the game launches, at the very least, so they are de facto complicit in all of this as well. And I will tell you now, when this game launches, all the early access reviewers will pretty much start parroting the exact same party line. And it will be some trite PR bullshit along the lines of, I've got no issue with it, it's only optional, if you've got a problem with it, you must be homophobic. It's an RPG. Henry is whoever you decide he is. It's up to the player if he's gay. Or they will simply deny any prior knowledge of it. I will be absolutely shocked if even one of them says, well, I wanted to warn you about it, but I was under NDA and I didn't want to forfeit any of the free mouse mats. This is why you don't sign NDAs. This is why early access reviews are a deal with the devil, and this is why you should never pre-order video games, because every trusted corporation is only trustworthy right up until the moment they are not. So don't spend your money first and then hope that it's all going to be okay. We always knew this game was going to come under attack. The first game did. People tried to cancel it because it wasn't woke, and the wokies have been attacking this game too. As for Daniel Vavra, I don't take any of this personally. This situation is a perfect example of why I don't have any heroes left. Vavra was the last one, and as of this moment he's suspended pending the results of a formal investigation. After the first game I sent him a bottle of whiskey. I will need to play the game before casting judgment, but right now it certainly looks like this time around he's going to get a carton of soy milk and a pacifier. Given a long enough timeline, everyone in the video game industry that I have admired ended up selling out, becoming a shill or signing up to DEI. With the Embracer Group taking over Warhorse Studios, the clock was always ticking on some inevitable fiasco. So no, I don't feel betrayed. Maybe a little sad. You see, Daniel Vavra might be a Chad on social media when he's fighting a good fight, but he's floundering at the moment because essentially, I think, deep down when his head hits that pillow at the end of the day and he's trying to sleep, I think he knows he hasn't been exactly straight with everyone. The whole bullshit line about "it's just optional" is pure spin and massive cope. Warhorse has been busted in 4K cheating on their fans, and now they are busted. They are feigning outrage and faking indignation as a smokescreen so they can gaslight the audience until payday. This is purely performative, this is not genuine, this is a gaslighting psyop, and the reviewers seem to have been co-opted into it. And the reviewers will come out in defence of Warhorse because they have cleverly been made complicit in this whole situation. I don't know about you, but I didn't hear of any early access reviewers saying, "Crikey, I pressed a few buttons and suddenly Henry was sucking a cock. Didn't expect that one." I've heard no mention of the gay scene, which means it's either been embargoed or they're all under contract to cover it up too. Maybe my cynicism's got the better of me and maybe this is all a massive misunderstanding. However, at this point there are probably thousands of people who've been directly or indirectly involved with the development of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Creatives, programmers, artists, digital artists, writers, mocap specialists, camera operators, community managers, the music department, costume department, lighting specialists, legal, and all the other people and departments and units. Are we to assume that through some act of pure luck, not one person ever mentioned to anyone, ever, that Henry has a same-sex relationship in this game? Seriously? Not one tweet, not one comment in any interview with anyone ever over several years? There was not one peep about the same-sex romance option. That stretches credulity, really. How come this story didn't break a year ago or 2 years ago? I only found one thing that came even close in this article in The Gamer, which claims to be published on the 22nd of August last year. From what I can gather, the writer, Jade King, who is your typical legacy media queer activist journo type, apparently got to go to Prague and play a few hours of the game. In the article, she goes off on one, fantasising about how she wishes the game went down the road of Brokeback Mountain. Her words, not mine. Seriously, you can't make this shit up. Well, in fact, she did. The article basically slides into her fantasies and theory crafting of a /fiction possible plot for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, where Henry and Hans Capon end up getting sweaty with each other, literally, and this leads to them getting sweaty with each other, figuratively. She rambles on about their hidden feelings, and I guess her general thesis is the game would be oh so much better if Henry and Hans got it on with each other, and KCD2 ended up being the Brokeback Mountain of RPGs. The last line of the preview article states, "Deep down, I'm not sure Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is moving in this direction, but God, I hope it does." There were only about 5 comments under this article, and they were not particularly positive and supportive. One simply said, "Yikes, woman." God knows what the intention was behind this article, but if we find out this week that Henry and Hans do end up getting it on in KCD2 and Hans is the romance partner, then it may well be that this was someone disguising a leak by dressing it up as fanfiction. Who knows? Maybe they were testing the waters covertly to see what the response would be. So as they say, if it turns out to be true, you heard it here first. Henry and Hans turn KCD2 into BBM RPG. At the end of the day, Henry is a devout Christian heterosexual man from the Middle Ages, and he has been retconned by Warhorse Studios to be bisexual because of political imperatives that didn't exist until half a millennia later. Now, if that is not DEI, then I don't know what is. If they really are making this game historically accurate, why aren't people in the game throwing horseshit at Henry in the street and shouting, "Sodomite"? Why doesn't the priest come around with a bunch of angry villagers to give him a stern lesson in moral values? Who knows, maybe that's what happens in the game. But as I keep stressing, nobody minds gay characters in games. They just don't like it when people turn straight characters gay for DEI. Ultimately, I guess this was all about the rollout of DEI. The community managers have drawn up the battle lines and clearly they're positioning all critics as homophobes. But that's bullshit. This is not about homophobia. This is not about tolerance. This is about participation. This is happening in all areas of entertainment and woke politics, and it's the same struggle session shit. It's not enough to merely be tolerant. You must be an active participant. It's just like how those commie BLM protesters force people to take a knee whilst filming them. How corporations force staff to attend struggle session diversity readjustment training. This is not about tolerance, it is about forced participation. So personally, I don't give two shits whether the man love in this game is optional or not. I am aggrieved by the fact that they shoehorned a homosexual retcon into this game to force everyone playing it to participate in the diversity bullshit. Henry is a canonically straight Christian man. No part of turning him bisexual makes any sense from a creative perspective. It only makes sense within the context of DEI and servicing contemporary progressive politics. I think one of the particularly pernicious aspects of all of this is that Warhorse Studios, community managers, Daniel Vavra and the Embracer Group lackeys at PlayOn are hauling out the same old tropes that we have become so tired of. They're trying to position their critics as homophobic, intolerant, bigots. Daniel Vavra is even taking a pop at YouTubers and labelling critics as, and I quote, grifters. That shitpost he made really worried me because that is a progressive trope, using a specifically woke-tard pejorative. That is the kind of reaction you'd expect from someone like Alyssa McCante, not Daniel Vavra. As Rev Says Dessous accurately points out, Daniel Vavra once put the AAA industry on blast and called them out for attacking their own customers. Well, here we are, a mere few years later, and he's doing the exact same shit himself. Either Daniel Vavra isn't quite the guy he portrayed himself as, or he really has changed. To some degree, however, I will reserve full judgment on the entirety of this issue until I've actually played the whole game. Maybe I will have some epiphany when I eventually see how this all plays out, and I'll do a 180 and declare that it all makes sense in context. But don't hold your breath. But one picture is certainly starting to form in front of my eyes. The consensus about this optional homosexuality in the game certainly seems to be incredibly cunningly orchestrated. By issuing early access copies of this game to literally hundreds of YouTubers, making them sign NDAs and giving them full copies of the game to play nearly a month before the launch, Warhorses made sure that 1. They all knew about the gay stuff, 2. They wouldn't be able to say anything about it, 3. They would have to rationalise their silence retrospectively by deciding it's optional, it's no big deal. This is like forcing new gang members to commit a murder, so they're equally as complicit in crime as everyone else in the gang. And maybe that is the crux of this drama. All of the early access reviewers are in the gang now, and they now represent a giant block of opinion shapers that will shout from the rooftops that it's all okay because it's optional. Because it's optional retconning and turning a straight dude gay. Of course they will, because the alternative narrative is all of your favourite YouTubers knew all about this and they didn't say a fucking word because they decided it was more profitable to stay firmly seated on the hype train and get all the nice free stuff, channel promotion and privileged access. I mean, they must know. Many of them do communicate with each other. They get invited to these promotional events in Prague in groups, so many of them have literally met. So if only a few of them saw the gay romance, word would have spread pretty quickly through the entire lot of them. So expect everyone that is part of the gang and their mates to side with the crowd screeching, it's only optional retconning DEI. It doesn't count if it's optional. Another thing to do is calibrate your perspective by thinking about what ultra woke activist progressives will think about all of this drama. I'm sure that soon Jim Sterling will post a video and it will go something like this. Ha ha ha, Warhorse Studio turned Henry gay and all the chuds are crying about it. This is brilliant. If Warhorse Studios are doing things that Jim Sterling will be cheering about, maybe, just fucking maybe, there is an issue here. And maybe, just maybe, people are being mugged off by content creators because they are complicit and rationalising the whole issue to justify their own involvement. Because let's face it, the alternative is a rather depressing conclusion. Essentially, this is potentially one of the biggest scandals in the independent YouTuber reviewing community, where somehow a PR company managed to get a vast swathe of the reviewer community to come out supporting DEI by offering them free trips, copies of the game and some fucking mouse mats, and subtly co-opting their involvement in what is effectively a cover-up. Let that one sink in, because the implications are that you can't trust any access reviewer, because their hands might be dirty and they might be keeping silent about awkward truths and even defending those awkward truths to cover up their own complicity because they signed an NDA and or got rewarded directly or indirectly. I have no doubt that if this video comes to the attention of a single one of those early access reviewers, it will immediately elicit a very hostile reaction. Christ, it would not surprise me if it triggered outright fury, brigading and possibly mass flagging. Then again, none of them seem to spot the fact that a canonically heterosexual medieval Christian has suddenly turned gay, so I doubt they'll spot this video because clearly their observation skills aren't that fucking hot. So GG PR company, they have managed to get the allegedly impartial reviewers on board and most likely get them all fighting to defend good old DEI. Credit where credit is due. As psyops go, I am absolutely impressed. I'm sure that the bulk of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 will be a fine game. I'm also sure that Henry becoming bisexual will not be the only little surprise we get. I'm sure the black character will be a virtue signalling victim of the white oppressor, and we'll get the odd subtle lesson about feminism. I'm sure the bulk of the gameplay will be great though, and it will be generally well received, like the Last of Us DLCs. That was a hint. But I'm sure that Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 may well still end up being one of the Best Authentic RPGs in 2025, and maybe a Game of the Year nominee. An optionally gay Game of the Year nominee. And after all, they qualify now that they've wedged in all the DEI prerequisites. So that was nice. My predictions about the game are these. It will be a beautiful open world. It will probably be a lot of fun. They will have fleshed out a lot of the game mechanics. The general doing stuff and exploring stuff will be fantastic. It will be much more polished than the first game. It will still have some pretty wild bugs, just like the first game. We will all feel very excited and nostalgic. If you choose the wrong speech options, you'll accidentally end up getting shagged by Hans Capon, or shagging Hans Capon. Top or bottom, you do you. We will no doubt start bumping into at least a couple of Mary Sues later in the game. The Middle Eastern character will be an intolerable virtue signalling amplifier of anti-colonialist propaganda who is only there for DEI exposition purposes. Henry will get put in his place at least once or twice about his prejudices or biases. Henry will get saved by a woman at some point. It won't be anywhere near as woke as people fear, but it will be much more woke than we would have liked. On a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is the original Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 and 10 is Dustborn, I reckon Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 will turn out to be around a 4. That's somewhere between The Last of Us DLC and Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It won't be intolerably woke, but I think there will, for a fact, be moments in this game where people stop, take pause and think, yeah, this studio has changed. Anyway, let me know in the comment section how much of an awesome super gay I would be if I was actually gay. But for now, good luck and happy hunting.